Enjoy with your headphones for a better listening experience.
Please watch till the end of the video to have the most scariest part of the story.
I just saw a ghost and I'm terrified.
Buildings are really old. 1. Alright sir, I'm an agnostic. Don't really believe in anything spiritual or paranormal, but at the same time I'm well aware that I don't know everything. I am working a night shift right now. It's almost midnight, in a care home. The care home consists of 2 buildings, the main one right next door, and a smaller one with only a few residents. I'm working in the small one tonight and I'll be the only member or staff around until morning. Both buildings are really old, and before becoming a care home, they were housing an orphanage with sick, deformed children, in the late 1800s, early 1900s. There are still some pictures of them on the walls here and there. From what I've been told, many of them unfortunately passed away here. About half an hour ago I was on my way out from a bedroom when I was what seemed to be a lady wearing a white nightdress at the other end of the hall. For a split second I thought it was a resident who perhaps couldn't sleep. However, I soon realized that I could only see half of her body, vertically, as she disappeared, walking through the wall. The whole thing lasted only a couple of seconds. I froze there and tried to figure out what I just saw, then went outside to have a cigarette and tried to calm myself down. I really don't know what to make of this. It has never happened to me before and I'm very scared. Is there any logical explanation? Just to clarify, I am not sleep deprived and I never hear, see things. Update. Guys, I think I'm officially losing my mind. I was on my way back to the main door, had to go throw away some garbage, and as soon as I walked in I heard a man, or a woman, with a deep voice, shouting, "Hello." I didn't make sense because the sound came from my right-hand side and it's only 2 women and a gentleman, but that was not his voice. I said, "Hello," back but got no answer. So I looked in the 3 bedrooms but they're all fast asleep. I even went upstairs, there's only one man there who usually stays up till late, and asked him if he called, but he said, no. After that I checked every room, all while looking over my shoulder, but everyone is sleeping. I'm about to cry, cause I only see 2 explanations. Either there's someone here who could possibly hurt me, or I've developed a mental disorder out of the blue. Both are bad. 2. Close your eyes and take a deep breath for a moment. You aren't crazy. You saw what you saw and heard what you heard. With your first encounter, it sounds like a residual haunting, or residual energy. When some type of pattern has taken place for a long time, such a resident, for example, pacing or walking the same path back and forth, if it occurs regularly for long enough, it can lead to traces of energy that continue to replay over and over, even in the future. Due to the age of the place, it's very likely that there have been some reconstruction, renovations throughout the years, so where you see a wall now, there may have used to be some sort of doorway. Because of that, there could have been a past resident or patient that would walk a specific path on a regular basis over and over, and what you're seeing is echoes of that energy taking place now. It's terrifying to see the first time when you don't understand what's happening. I live in a 113-year-old house, and the first time I witnessed something similar in my own kitchen, I about fainted dead away. It's not unsafe by any means, though, you're not in any sort of danger, and it doesn't have any awareness or sentience. It's just an echo from the past, repeating itself. It's the same with you hearing the hello, especially since you responded and didn't hear anything after that. It's very likely, in the same way, that this is another residual echo that may have happened in the past, that you're hearing a repeat of now. What sounds most likely is that, for whatever reason, whether it's something within you or your surrounding circumstances, you're more open than usual, which is why you're experiencing these things for the first time. That may have been happening around you before, but you weren't aware of. Even though it's very scary to experience, pay attention to the feeling of the energy around you. Does it seem positive, negative, or neutral? If it were to feel negative, that's when you'd stand your ground, claim your space, and tell whatever it is to leave you alone. If it feels neutral, or even positive, if it's not something you want to have anything to do with, it's best to just not acknowledge it. When you acknowledge it directly, that feeds energy into it, and it makes it more likely that you'll experience a recurrence, or a ramping up of said energy. Since it sounds like you're still there currently, one way to help close yourself off is to sit down somewhere quiet, close your eyes, and picture a string, a thread, or ribbon of any color you want, wrapping itself all the way around you from head to toe, covering you in protection. It sounds a bit odd, but it's a way of closing yourself off so that you're less likely to experience this sort of thing. I'm sure I sound like a kook lol, but this is what I've learned and done in the past based on my own experiences, and it's what has worked for me. I wish you all the best, and hope the rest of your shift goes smoothly and peacefully. 3. Possibly. When spirits hurt you, it's not like the movies. They can drain energy or make you feel anxious or scared or just make a workplace unbearable. I worked for an orange storage company. Even with magic, I did not like the highest floor in the building. You can make this. I have this on my clipboard. Create holy oil. Use olive oil or any other oil you have on hand. Get herbs such as rosemary, sage, thyme, dill or parsley. These should be dried, but if you only have the fresh ones, it will work, but the remaining oil will go bad in a few hours. Add everything into a bowl. Say a prayer of choice, with the intention of protection from negative energy and malicious spirits and entities. Now anoint the thresholds of doorways, windows and anywhere you feel you need to. Using water instead of oil makes holy water. You can make holy oil and just set it aside. Also, the oil can also be dabbed on skin at pulse points to keep things away. 6 months of storage in a cool, dark place with dried herbs. 4. I lived in a condo that became very haunted when the neighbor's kid died. He was 10 years old, and when he was alive I'd always give him snacks etc. Whenever I'd see him. He lived with us for 11 years. At first it was kind of unsettling, but after a while it was like he was just another member of the family, though one you couldn't always see. But yeah, the place you're at is most likely haunted, but remember, ghosts were living people. The man probably heard you and wanted to see if someone was there. I think us living people appear as ghosts to the ghosts sometimes. So, just remember, they're happy at that place. It may have been the only place they were ever comfortable. My neighbor had 3 children as a single mom. I suspect the boy saw how much food and cool toys, like video games etc. We hadn't decided it'd be great top live with us, so they stayed. 5. Please don't automatically assume whoever is there will hurt you. And as someone who didn't have the faintest interest in ghosts, not sure I disbelieved or believed, hadn't really thought about the whole thing much, I became a believer in a big hurry. It was in the UK, around an area where the reaction was, shrug, yay, that's the ghost. Those old institutions can have some tragic stories even if that one wasn't one of the abuse-filled horror shows. The ancient old house where a ghost introduced itself to me had a husband-wife tragedy. Both apparently hung around, but as far as I know they just hung around. Nothing like those blood-drenched movies. Guessing they'd make a fairly boring movie. Try not to freak yourself out too much. When you have a chance, maybe ask around for the history there, might explain a few things. 6. It's okay, you'll be alright. Take a few deep slow breaths, and try to calm down a little. You'll get through this, I promise. You're not alone, and you're not in any danger. You're going to be okay. Just breathe. Okay, maybe you actually did see a ghost. I wasn't there. I didn't see what you saw, so I'll agree that you probably did see exactly what you said. But really, how scary was it? Were you directly threatened in any way? Were you threatened indirectly? Did what you saw actually say anything to you? Or was it just really unusual? It's okay if it was that last thing, because we, as a species, have a tendency to fear what we can't understand. And there is a lot we can't understand in this world. Even our scientists, the people we trust to have all the answers, don't understand much. They know lots of stuff, but even they will admit they don't know everything. If you ask any scientist if they know all the answers, they'll laugh and tell you they don't even know all the questions yet. But just because we don't know the answers aren't reason to be afraid, is it? I'm an agnostic too, which is the only religious belief that is based on cold hard facts. Other religions use folklore and assumptions, but it's impossible to back those things up with science. Agnosticism, however, is driven by solid facts. Go ahead, ask us if there is a God, and ask us what happens after we die, or ask us what ghosts are actually made of. We don't know, and we freely admit that we don't know, which a cold hard scientific fact is. Maybe we would like to know, but we don't. Which other religion can back their beliefs up like we can? If you said none, you answered correctly. Ghosts do exist, but nobody has any idea what they are or why they choose to show up when and where they do. Are they the spiritual remnants of departed people? That's one theory. Are they from another planet or galaxy? That's another theory. Are they from another parallel dimension? That's yet another theory, and any or all of them may be right. The cold hard fact is that we don't know, just like we don't know a lot of other things. But don't let it scare you. Living people can and will hurt you, but nobody has ever been harmed by a ghost. 7. A nurse I know well was telling me a couple of years ago she saw an old consultant photocopying at 4 a.m., which she thought was odd. Then another of her team screamed in the corridor. She'd seen him too, and he just faded into thin air in front of her. I guess nursing and medical type facilities, whether it be care homes, palliative wards, trauma wards, etc., are pretty active places. Though I said it's pretty depressing to think he'd passed, then went back to work tears of joy I'd be fuming at working for my eternal afterlife. As long as there's no carbon monoxide leak and you're not experiencing other strange things like sudden bad headaches, hallucinations and stuff, then it's quite possible. Likely you've met some previous residents. It sounds like they're just there, may just be spirit memories of being there rather than wanting to communicate or interact with you. Therefore no reason to be frightened. Sometimes we have a flurry of events in our house, like a rush of energy that sets a few of them off. No idea why. But sounds like a couple of old residents popped by randomly. You might never see it, hear them again. 8. You're most likely not crazy, whether that's what you want to hear or not. I saw something similar as a kid, mid-90s. I used to live with my parents in their parents' converted loft. They had me young, 18/19, until I was around 4 years old. I have a very vivid memory of my childhood from an exceptionally young age, compared to most, it seems. My mum used to watch TV on the level below with my nana until late, every night. I would always hear them chatting and the TV playing. This one night, when I was around 3 I woke up and saw an elderly woman in a white nightgown calmly walking towards me with a small dog to her left. Both her and the dog were what you'd see a ghost to look like in movies, i.e., semi-transparent and mostly white. The room was very dark, and although it wasn't emitting any light, I could still see it very clearly. I remember not seeing any feet, as though her bottom 1/4 was faded out. When I noticed this, I screamed for my mum, and I remember my dad coming up first, and then my mum taking me downstairs afterwards as I was inconsolable. Naturally, they just assumed it was a dream. However, I also remember any interesting dreams and nightmares I had at a similar age, and this was 100% not one of them. And I was 100% awake during this experience. I didn't even know what a ghost was to be able to dream one up. I just specifically remember being very scared as I didn't recognize her and the fact her feet were missing. She was floating. As scary as it is at the time, regardless of age, I'm actually really thankful for this experience now as I take others seriously when they describe witnessing something similar. Whereas usually I'd be tempted to brush something like this off. 9. Speaking as a pagan and as someone who was seeing shadow folk and ghosts from the time I could toddle, they usually just want acknowledgement. We had one that would mess with touch lamps until we told him, good night, and then the light would either turn off or go to lowest setting. However, if it is really bothering you that much, sea salt, old cast iron, and spices are all traditional stay ways for ghosts. I've always had the best luck using old iron for protection, though when I didn't want to deal with them. You're probably fine, but wishing you luck. 10. I used to be terrified of ghosts too. Have seen one in my house though, and it was fine. Just looked like an old guy walking past my door. There really is nothing to be afraid of though. The lady won't hurt you or put clammy hands on you, probably. And you can take comfort in the knowledge of persistence of consciousness. Try not to react negatively. Unless it's actively hurting someone, just leaves it be. There's no need to exercise the spirit or make it believe it is unwelcome. Treat it how you would want to be treated if you were in their shoes. Or lack of. 11. We healthcare workers in the hospitals almost just accept it as a normal. Especially night shift people, because spirits getting really active around 2 to 3 a.m. Even sometimes I have been in rooms after someone has passed. And you can feel the energy. Nursing has a long-standing tradition of opening a window when someone has passed to let the spirit out so it's not trapped inside. Unfortunately, our trauma eye hospital didn't have windows, so a lot of people, believers and non-believers, always have stories that sometimes can't fully be explained. You're not losing your mind. 12. When I started at my hospital, I had no idea about the paranormal activity and was completely surprised by how much there is and how it's just accepted as a normal thing. I run the electrical department, so I know every square inch of that place and I can tell you where all the hotspots are. I see shadows at least once a day, and the ICU on the second floor is constantly being plagued with odd things happening electrically and mechanically, even though the building is less than 2 years old. I was the foreman on that construction job, so I know for a fact it's not faulty work. The entire engineering team sees the same things and joke about it. 13. Back in about 2006, I had the bright idea that I wanted to go to school to be a nurse anesthetist. I had my whole path mapped out, but I never even made it past my first semester of community college. Anyway, during my research and planning of my future, I came across a website called allnurses.com, if I remember correctly. It was just like Reddit, except it was for people who worked, planned on working, or just enjoyed reading about the medical field. There was a spray forum where people just talked about whatever topic they wished, and one subject was ghost stories. Some of the tales told on there were absolutely terrifying. I was a 27 to 28-year-old man, and I'd be so shook I couldn't get out of the chair to go to bed. This was before we all had little computers we kept in our pockets. I was on this website using a big-ass desktop that seems so alien to me now, lol. That forum was one of the reasons I joined this subreddit and others like it, but I haven't read anything on Reddit that was as scary as some of the stories I seen on a medical website. Also, my mom was a nurse in the surgery department for almost 25 years, and she spoke of a surgical suite that was supposedly haunted. It got to a point where housekeeping didn't want to go in there, and nobody felt comfortable enough in there to get it prepped for a procedure, so they just stopped scheduling cases in that room. 14. I walked into my house in 2003 and looked on my stairs to see half a person standing on the stairs. I jokingly say, I saw ghost feet, but the truth is, I saw half a person standing on my stairs and then they were gone. My house was built in 1915, and what I saw, I'm 100% sure, was the legs of a WW soldier standing there. I can still see the military boots in my mind plain as day. I wasn't scared or threatened, but I saw what I saw. 15. I worked in psych units for years that were built on old asylum sites, and we would have nights with a lot of activity. One event I'll never forget. I saw the reflection of a big black hooded figure, really tall and stocky, walk past right behind me, and at the same time the person facing me saw it walk past behind me. They said, "Did you see that?" So I asked what they saw first before revealing we'd seen the exact same thing. In my opinion, I believe you saw something. 16. Please don't be scared or think you're going mad. You're in a place where there would be lots of spiritual activity. I've lived in homes with activity and I've never felt scared. Most activity is benign and has nothing to do with you. It's not trying to scare you. Some spirits just don't know how to move on. Talk to your co-workers, and maybe you guys can get some sage and smudge the place. 17. I consider myself agnostic too. I love stories like yours. Assuming you're telling the truth, no offense, but it's the internet, I think the most likely answer is it is some kind of unexplainable spirit activity. What that exactly means, who knows? I really doubt it can or will hurt you though. What you described doesn't sound threatening in the least. There is a chance it manifested from your own mind. It doesn't mean you're developing a disorder though. Hallucinations can happen to otherwise healthy people, especially on night shift. If it keeps happening, or if you're just concerned, nothing wrong with seeing a professional. 18. Welcome to a wider world view. Choosing not to believe things doesn't keep them from existing. The vast majority of spirits mind their own business and are generally uninterested in affairs of humans. And, in the case of human spirits, they're still people, when actually sentient. You could have experienced mere residual activity. What was the weather like? It can amplify the energies in an environment. 19. Spooky. I bet you did see something, especially if the building is that old and multiple people I assume have passed away there. I forget the term, but there's some type of phenomenon where something that happened in the past in a certain spot will replay on a loop, despite changes to the environment, like the lady walking through a wall. There probably was a door there at some point. 20. Don't be afraid. Energetic bodies are real. If you want to think of it scientifically, they're like information or data registered in the environment. I've worked at 3 different care facilities, all nocturnal shifts, and spirits are very common, especially while alone, like if the other staff member goes on break and I'd be at the nurse's station seeing spirits walk by. The other caregivers I worked with also had plenty of ghost stories. It's totally normal. They're not going to hurt you. I was afraid at first, but got used to it. 21. Serious question. If ghosts are real, how come they're typically wearing older type clothes? Or clothes at all? I've never heard of naked ghosts before. Even if it's newer clothes, is it what you die in? What you're buried in? Are you stuck wearing one thing for all of eternity? Can you change? Can you choose? How come people always talk about ghosts but never talk or focus on their clothes? A lot of people die naked, in the bathtub or in their sleep, but yet I've never heard of a naked ghost. Just an interesting detail, or actually more than a detail that I've never heard discussed before. 22. I used to work in a care home. The building was as old as, if not older than the one you describe. It was haunted too, and staff seen things like you have often. I never saw anything, but the feeling was there, especially in the old nunnery house. I chalked it up to so many souls passing in the building that the building was soaked in energy. 23. A care home would be one of the most actively haunted places. If it truly is a spirit, they're probably not there to harm anyone or actively cause problems. It's more likely an old resident who can't move on or doesn't want to leave the home. Check the carbon monoxide detectors in the care home and your own home just to be safe. If you are worried about a mental disorder, please go to a professional. Suddenly seeing hallucinations is probably the biggest sign you should go to a doctor. If it's neither carbon monoxide nor a mental disorder, it could be spirits. Try talking to them when it's quiet. Let them know what you're there for and you don't mean them harm or offense, but also let them know they've scared you and you'd like them not to. In fact, just do that anyway. 24. Adding to this, one event of hallucinations does not equate a mental disorder. Our brains do weird things under various circumstances. Perhaps OP has been stressed lately. I will also note that it is a very much recognized thing for people working third shift to experience psych disturbances to some extent simply because of how dramatic of a change it is to our circadian rhythms. It often isn't something one just gets used to after a week. 25. I guess my difference is I do believe in the existence of spirits, human and non-human. And I think you saw one, and heard one. I mean, if you continue to see and hear things all over, not just at work, then do go see a psychiatrist. But if you only see things at work, it's likely that location being haunted. Second thought, make sure the carbon monoxide detectors are properly functioning in that building. Ask maintenance if they are up to date on battery maintenance and checking. The only other scientific possibility is the building having a high EMF field. EMF at high levels can make even non-sensitive people have some hallucinations, in addition to feeling uneasy, nauseated, or feeling watched. People sensitive to EMF can have these symptoms at lower levels. I'm not sure the exact numbers for what they consider lomed high, but I bet Google does. EMF usually comes off of electric devices, or even electrical wires. If the building has old wiring or poorly done wiring, there could be an EMF leak. Or, if the building is full of Wi-Fi networks, Bluetooth, cellular networks, wireless networks, like if you have telefax on heart monitor patients, etc. You are going to have a higher EMF field around you. Hospitals often monitor their premises for EMF because it causes interference for certain devices. But then, if you subscribe to the more woo-woo thinking, the old lady in a nightgown is likely a residual haunt. It's just an energy recording in that spot. Unless they interact with you, they're residual. The man's voice saying hello could simply be that one old man resident was talking in his sleep and a different voice came out of him. Or it could be a residual or sentient spirit's voice. Honestly, so it was the full moon on like Thursday. And they say more spiritual activity happens around the full moon. It's Passover, by the way. 26. I would really believe that there are spirits all over where you work. I also believe you have nothing to fear because I don't think any of them would hurt you even if they could. You should set up a video camera sometime and point it down a hall and just let it run all night. The next day take the time to watch it all. Time consuming, I know, but I think you will probably see a lot of things you never even thought about. It is not anything to be afraid of. 27. I am also not sure what to believe in as far as ghosts go. But I am obsessed with the possibility. However, I am also completely obsessed with crime shows and podcasts. With this, I would be absolutely terrified of the fact that someone could be there. That's not a ghost. Side story. My grandpa passed away a month ago. I've been devastated. It was more sudden than we expected. 2 weeks before he passed, I asked him if he could please haunt me when he dies. He said, if it's possible, I will try. And I said, but maybe not a scary haunting, and maybe that's why he isn't visiting me, because he knows I am like you. I'm clinically bipolar, I am diagnosed and treated. And I am probably seeing things, or, who the heck is in here and why does he look like my grandpa? If it is a ghost, you can let them know you're afraid and to leave you alone. At least, it's what I've read. Good luck to you. 28. If you do go a doctor, just think twice about any psychiatric diagnosis, if any. Around 2 years ago I had an experience that some would say I was exhibiting symptoms of schizophrenia or was having a mental breakdown. If I went to a shrink who diagnosed me as having a mental breakdown, I would be paranoid for the rest of life that I might have another one. The simplest things would trigger an anxiety attack. Then I would probably start being afraid of having demented phobia. If you see a shrink, more than likely he or she is a skeptic and just a simple diagnosis could severely affect you for the rest of your life, yet you actually might have experienced something supernatural. To make a long story short, I got possessed and I know it was the spirit's entity that was making their presence known to me. I was taunting them and saying out loud how they don't scare me if they did something such as throw an object at me. They left a message to me by having my air cleaner balancing perfectly upside down in the bedroom. Which is an impossibility. My ex and I tried to balance it upside down, but we couldn't. So I think they left that there. Just in case I had a thought that I may have been sleepwalking or showing signs of a mental illness, as if to say, no. It was us. I was capturing a lot of EVPs before then also, which further strengthened my opinion that I was not exhibiting signs of any illness, for it did just not simply believe that they were around, they definitely were around. Some would probably say I have no business offering advice when it comes to the medical field, for I am not a doctor. I am not a basketball player either, but I can have an opinion such as Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player ever. A lot of people will tell you here that you are mentally ill and you need to see a doctor. Follow your gut instinct. If you know you saw something, then you probably did. No one else knows you more than yourself. And you are not alone. 29. Hi, the thing is that there is definitely somewhere we all go after death. They are very aware of us, but most of the time don't bother us. Some feel the need to make us aware of their presence. In life these were good people who have passed over and just wish to be left alone. Then you get paranormal groups going into places trying to literally hunt them down. I'd be angry. I'm sure I'd end up throwing things at their head. They need to be respected and left in peace. No one has the right to taunt just to gain a reaction. What happened to you wasn't nice, but maybe it will serve as a warning to be respectful of our deceased and leave well alone. 30. Oh, I wasn't taunting them to get a reaction. I wholeheartedly agree that spirits should be treated with respect. I was just speaking to a fellow editor here 2 days ago about that. He is having a class about treating spirits with respect, and I messaged him telling him I believe in what he is teaching. We also advised someone who created a new thread to not provoke, which he wanted to do to get a reaction. The main culprit I was speaking about I don't think is a spirit, but some type of non-human entity that is not exactly evil, but not good or nice, either. It would do things to try to scare me to get a reaction from me instead. Such as doing heavy breathing on the phone for hours, which sounded pretty disturbing, and then throwing a pen at me and hearing a disembodied sarcastic laugh coming from the closet. I would then say I wasn't afraid, which I shouldn't have done. It took it as a challenge. Whenever it was around there would be this characteristic static-like sound like plastic grocery bags rustling. A fellow editor here had an interesting theory of it being jinn, which sounds plausible. The spirits themselves I spoke to I never did taunt. I don't really watch those ghost hunting shows, maybe. Once a year I'll subscribe to the Discovery Plus app and watch them back to back, that's about it.
Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share and subscribe. The Internet Surfer on YouTube for more horror and scary stories.